It was this moment when I realized, oh wow, you gotta be lucky. Like there's so many things out there that you don't control.
This is Life in 7 Songs from the San Francisco Standard. I'm Sophie Behrman. My guest this week is Maria Konnikova, a writer and psychologist who has spent her life trying to make sense of people. Maria's family immigrated from Russia to a Boston suburb when she was 4 years old, and Maria often felt like a bit of a misfit. But that outsider's perspective would eventually become her superpower. Maria earned a PhD in psychology, built a career writing about how we think, and became an expert on everything from Sherlock Holmes-style reasoning to the psychology of con artists. But Maria's most unexpected chapter came when she took her psychological powers to the world of professional poker. What began as a personal quest born out of a personal struggle became a professional transformation, one she chronicles in her New York Times best-selling book, The Biggest Bluff, where she shares her insights about chance, luck, and becoming an international poker champion. Maria Konnikova, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Sophie.
So let's just dive straight into the music. Your first song plays an important role for you at the poker table. It's Full Clip by Starr. Tell me about this one.
Before I start playing, I always like to listen to music. And 3 or 4 years ago, my husband and I relocated to Vegas. So now we split time between Vegas and New York. And I learned how to drive because I didn't know how to drive. We got a car. And so I started driving to poker tournaments. And somehow, and I honestly don't know how this happened, but Full Clip became my psych-up song. Every time, if you see me and I'm about to sit down to play, just rest assured that I will have listened to Full Clip. That's my, I'm ready to fuck shit up. Let's go win some tournaments.
Shout the gate again, time to raise the stakes again. Fatten my plate again. Y'all cats know we always play to win. GNG to the stars, son. Haters took this shit too far, son. So that's all for you. I'm wiping out your whole team. Out, flatter your dreams with lyrics to shatter your schemes. The badder you seem, the more lies you tell. The more lies you shall. Now by surprise you fell into my...
Sophie, you can't censor Gangstar. That's shit. That word is shit. That's not Come on.
Uh-oh. I guess we picked the clean version on that.
No clean version.
But oh my God, those lyrics, the badder you seem, the more lies you tell, the more lies you sell, and by surprise you felt poker all the way, right?
Oh my God, yeah, absolutely. When I'm playing poker, rap is what I listen to almost exclusively because you want that killer mindset. You want to fuck people up. Mm-hmm. Sorry. You don't want to be on planet Vivaldi. We are listening to let's do some damage here.
What's an example of when you've used something you've learned from poker to help you in your daily life?
Oh, I use it all the time. I mean, I think it's just made me really much more attuned to people because you have to pay attention to all the dynamics, to what people are thinking. How are people feeling, right? What's their mindset right now? How did they react to something? It's very unintuitive because you think that poker is, all about taking people's money, and it's very vicious, but it also makes you more empathetic in a way because you have to learn to kind of try to look at things from other people's perspectives all the time and try to figure out what's this person thinking? Why are they feeling this way? How are they seeing the world? And that kind of cognitive exercise is something that I use all the time in my non-poker life.
So interesting. Well, let's go way back, way before you were a poker champion. In the late 1980s, you were a 4-year-old girl. You emigrated here from Russia, and you picked a song that relates to your earliest memories in the U.S. It's Weak by SWV. Why'd you pick this one?
So I was incredibly close with my grandfather. He died when I was a freshman in college, but, I still think about him all the time. And when I think about music, he is the first person I think about. He had perfect pitch. He played a 7-string guitar, which is the traditional Russian instrument, acoustic instrument. It's rare in the U.S. He adored music, and he wanted to share that love with all of us. So I was a kid. My grandfather would drive me, because my parents both worked full time. And I took piano lessons and I took ballet. And he was kind of my chauffeur. He would drive me to and from lessons. And he didn't speak English really at all. But he loved garage sales. And in the suburbs, there are a lot of them. So at some point, he had gone to a garage sale and picked up a tape with various mixes, including the original, but various remixes of SWV's Week. And he was just like absolutely transfixed. I remember getting into the car and he is like, check this out. Like, have I got a song for you? And he played it week after week after week. And so this song was just etched in me because I heard it so many times.
So many versions.
Yes, so many versions. It's all he would play. Every time I got into the car, it was Week.
What do you think he heard in that particular song? Like, if it wasn't even the lyrics necessarily?
I think it's the voices. He loved the harmonies. And he taught me to listen for that. And he taught me to hear all of the different parts, all of the layers of a song. He's like, listen to the voices, listen to the harmonies, like listen to how they're singing together, listen to all the stuff going on. And he's like, good music is good music. And those melodies, like that kind of musical appreciation can come from anywhere. And it's so funny, right? A Russian immigrant who doesn't speak English, like falling in love with that song.
Well, your next song connects to your Russian heritage.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's Crystal House by Vladimir Vysotsky. So tell me about this one.
The music that I grew up with in my household was mostly Russian music, with some exceptions. The Beatles, Simon and Garfunkel, a lot of jazz, but it was also Russian bards. So Russia, Soviet Union had this history of resistance through the music of bards. So just male singers playing guitars, some female, but most of them, most of the kind of the big dissidents, resistance singers were male. And so, whenever we traveled anywhere with my parents in the car, we didn't have any money. So all of our vacations were road trips somewhere. And so we listened, to a lot of music. So Vysotsky and Bulat Akudjava were the two voices that most often accompanied us on those road trips.
What's the song about?
So this one, Crystal House, or Dom Hrustalny is how you say it in Russian, was a song that when I was a tiny kid, I just absolutely fell in love with it because it sounded like it was basically about a fairy tale princess, that there was, this crystal house that this king was building for her, and that he'd give her everything. He'd give her, his jewels, the ores and everything that he could mine from the ground. Like, the lyrics are, this kind of ode to this princess and, telling her how beautiful she is. She is like Raphael's Madonna, and just all of these beautiful sounds and words that made me just love it.
Дом хрустальный на горе для нее, сам как пес бы так и рос в цепи. Родники мои серебряные, золотые мои россыпи. Родники мои серебряные, золотые мои.
That's him talking about his silver and gold mines.
You said this song has a whole second layer, too, that you didn't pick up on as a kid.
So Vysotsky had an incredibly tragic life. He was basically killed by the Soviet Union. He died of alcoholism, but, it was the regime poisoned him. And he fell in love from afar at first with Marina Vladi, who was Russian-French actress. And then they ended up meeting and falling in love, like really falling in love. And it was just like one of these great, great love stories. The only problem was she lived in France and he wasn't allowed out of the country with limited exceptions because they were afraid he wouldn't come back. And she couldn't stay, like she had a career and all these things. So they ended up having to be apart for a long time. And this was, he wrote this for her. So in a way it was a song to a princess, but it was to this tragic, beautiful love story.
It's interesting how these first two songs have all these layers of meaning in them. Like even how the first one, your grandfather was teaching you about the musical layers of a song. Also, the whole album was different versions.
Yeah.
Like, is it a stretch to connect that to your interest in like the different facets and angles of people and psychology later on?
No. I don't think it's a stretch at all. You know, I think it's how I was taught to look at the world. You know, my parents, my grandfather, I mean, such incredible role models at looking at the complexity in the world and realizing that things are multi-layered, that people are multi-layered, that, you know, you can find, you know, all of this nuance everywhere.
And on that note, as an immigrant from Russia who, at least to start, didn't speak any English as a little girl, I imagine you must have had to do a lot of reading between the lines as a kid to understand sort of what was going on around you in this new Boston suburb.
100%. I think that all of these things laid the foundation for my interest in both psychology and language, because you don't know how powerful language is until the moment where you realize that you can't communicate, right? That you can't say what you need, what you want, that nobody understands you. And all of a sudden, it's just like this mind-boggling realization, especially, you know, to a 4-year-old kid, that, whoa, this is some heavy shit, right? Luckily, you know, as a kid, I'm good at languages, so I ended up, you know, picking up English pretty quickly. But I remember just observing all the kids in the class and, you know, figuring out, okay, these are the popular kids. Like, what do they do? Like, how do they act? Like, what? And I remember doing that calculus and being like, oh, I want to be like Jessica. Like, I still remember Jessica had this purple tracksuit that she like wore one day, and I was like, wow, and it was like the sparkly, you know, shiny purple tracksuit.
Oh my goodness.
I remember it so well.
Your next song is The Crossroads by Bone Thugs. Take me back to the moment you first heard this one.
I was in high school, and as you alluded to, you know, I lived in the Boston suburbs, and I lived in, I'm just gonna go out and say, like, a very whitewashed suburb. Like, it was very middle class, upper middle class, like not a ton of diversity, and, you know, everyone would listen to, you know, the pop music of the day. That's all to say, Bone Thugs was not kind of the music of choice, especially for the kids I hung out with. But because my grandfather, because, you know, of kind of my curiosity about music, and because of the fact that I had no access to pop music at home, in the sense that, like, in the car, we didn't listen to the radio, right? We listened to these tapes, or, you know, we'd listen to the Beatles, like, we'd listen to something like that. And I wanted to not just catch up, but, like, figure out what's going on in the world. So I would listen to a lot of different stations. Like, I'd listen to the alternative station, like I'd listen to the pop station. I'd channel surf and just kind of see what was going on. So at some point, I probably in, like, I don't know, 8th grade, something like that, I got a boombox for my birthday, and, like, this was huge. There was a radio, and you know, you could record from the radio to cassette tapes. And I remember one day I, like, was channel surfing, and I heard Crossroads, and I was like, whoa. You know how, like, to a teenage mind, like, sometimes something will just grab you with how profound it is.
Yeah.
I wasn't high at the time. Like, I didn't. But it's one of those insights where you're like, whoa, you know, see you at the crossroads. It's about, like, death and all this stuff. And it's deep, man. Anyway, I tried to find that song again. Like, I'd come home from school and like I'd turn on the radio to like wait for the song so that I could record it. So finally I did manage to get it on tape.
Your next song, it takes us to your college years. Personal favorite here, it's Stacy's Mom by Fountains of Wayne.
Oh my God. What an amazing song. Like, what a perfect piece of pop music. Like, Fountains of Wayne are amazing. This one might not be their most profound song, but there's just something absolutely so joyful about it. But anyway, so my two college roommates are still my two best friends. And for my birthday, they made me a CD for my birthday. And Stacy's Mom was the first song on it because it was a song, like it had been like one of the songs of our room that like we would play and like get psyched up and like when we were getting ready to go out or whatnot. And so every time I hear Stacy's Mom, it just brings me back to college. It just makes me so happy.
You also can't not sing this.
No, you have to. You have to like bop to it.
Yeah. Can't you see?
I challenge you to listen to Stacy's Mom and not smile. Like, what kind of a person do you have to be? You have to be a psychopath not to smile at that song, right?
Agreed. It's time for a quick break. When we come back, Maria faces a moment of personal crisis that gets her thinking about the role of luck in our lives and leads her to the poker tables. Stay with us. I guess to rewind for a second, how did you end up at Harvard? I mean, I guess, was that like a lifelong dream for you growing up in the Boston suburbs?
Yes, absolutely. I know I've said this many times, but like, let me just stress, I have the best parents in the world. And they never put any pressure on me whatsoever. I put all that pressure on myself. Like, the most important thing for them is for all of us to be happy. So it wasn't like, oh, you got to go and be a lawyer or be a doctor or like blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I wanted to go to Harvard. But I grew up outside of Boston, and we'd go into Cambridge and walk around Harvard Square. And I just like, that campus was just magic to me. And obviously, Harvard is Harvard. There's a certain cachet, there's a certain name, and especially to an immigrant, it just became this like magical thing. And I really, really I wanted to go to Harvard for as long as I can remember. And I had a teacher my sophomore year who told me that I was never going to get into Harvard. And he just freaked me out. And so at some point, like my junior year, I think, I actually gave myself a nervous breakdown because I was so nervous that I wouldn't get into Harvard. I just completely lost it.
What did it look like for you?
It was just me and my sister actually home. My sister's 6 years older than I am. She's a doctor now. She had good practice with me. But my parents were gone somewhere. And I don't remember even what triggered it, but I started laughing and then I started crying and I couldn't stop.
Yeah.
Couldn't stop that, hysterical laugh, crying, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever that was. I remember my sister put me in an ice bath and, I ended up calming down and being okay. But like getting myself to that point of nervous exhaustion was just crazy. Anyway, I got into Harvard on early admission, so I didn't have to apply anywhere else and everything was good.
So you studied creative writing and psychology at Harvard.
Mm-hmm. And government.
Then you'd go on to get a PhD from Columbia, studying confidence and risky decision making. Your next song connects to some perhaps slightly risky decision making on your part. I think it involves a fake ID and an older guy.
You might be referring to We've Been Had by the Walkmen. So I was absolutely in love with a much older guy. And by much older, I mean like 13 years older.
Wow.
And we started dating when I was a junior. And my birthday is very late in the year. I didn't turn 21 until after I graduated. And I don't think he knew that I was under 21. So I was just trying to keep that under wraps. And the Walkmen had just released their second album, Bows and Arrows, and they were coming to the Middle East. It's a club that often has 21 plus events. And the guy I was dating was like, oh, we should go. Because the Middle East was like where the grad school kids hung out. It wasn't like a place where Harvard freshmen went. Obviously, I wasn't a freshman at the time. But I was like, well, like, good thing I have my trusty fake ID. Now, it was a real ID. It just wasn't mine. One of my friends' older cousins had a friend, and it was her expired ID. I still remember Wellesley from Houston, Texas. Wellesley, thank you so much for
Shout out.
years and years of partaking in alcoholic beverages. Anyway, so we went to this show, and for a long time, like, I always felt out of place, right? I was this immigrant kid, didn't have much money, like, didn't wear the right clothes, like, wasn't quite right. And at Harvard, that was also the case in the sense that I was smart, but like, Harvard has a lot of really rich kids, a lot of really well-connected kids. Like, I wasn't them, and I could never belong in that group. And so I always felt like a little bit of a misfit. But that show was like, I felt so damn cool, right? Like, I was at this like show with this older guy, like, you know, at this club, and I was like, I'm in. This is like an cool, like, amazing, cutting edge thing to do. And that feeling was just great. But this song, We've Been Had, spoke to me, and that's the song that I always, like, when I hear it, it just brings me back to like that transitional period where I finally started feeling like it really made me feel like I belonged to something.
We've been had, you say it's over. Sometimes I'm just happy I'm older. We've been had, I know it's over. Somehow it got easy to laugh out loud.
What did that relationship teach you about yourself or about relationships?
That deception is not a good element in relationships. But it took me, man, I was profoundly bad at choosing significant others for a long time. And I dated some very inappropriate, for one reason or another, people. And at some point that changed. And I was like, you know what? Like, I'm done. Like, I'm just not taking any more shit. And like, that's it. But, you know, sometimes we got to learn, right? And I did learn.
And those relationships obviously didn't work out for the best. But your next song, I think, connects to one that did with your husband.
Yes.
So you picked Mean to Me. This is performed by Billie Holiday and Lester Young.
So, as I said, my dad's huge into jazz, and we grew up with a lot of jazz in the house. And the vocal jazz we listened to, we were really an Ella Fitzgerald household. I didn't really listen to Billie Holiday at all until I got to college, and I took a class with Robert Levin, who's a pianist who taught this course on jazz. And he taught me jazz appreciation at an entirely different level. I mean, right, this guy is someone who's, you know, world-class musician, and like, we went deep. One of the things I really gained an appreciation for was not just Billie Holiday, but specifically the relationship that Billie Holiday had with Lester Young. They had just this incredibly strong friendship, and the music that they created together was really special. And Lester's saxophone was almost like a second voice, right? So it was almost like duets, except instead of two voices, it was Billie Holiday singing and Lester Young responding, and like the two weaving together. And I just really gained such a huge appreciation for that. And so when I met my now husband after college, you know, on our first or second date, I learned that he used to play jazz sax quite seriously. Since I knew this about him, I was like, oh my God, I love Lester Young and Billie Holiday. And I just like went on and on about it. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, you know, I was just so excited to share all these things. And he lived in Boston at the time. I lived in New York. Like a week later, I get a package from him, and it's a CD. That's the Billie Holiday, Lester Young recordings. And I was like, oh, wow, this is amazing. Like, the first thing he ever got me, but also like he was listening, and like, it's a really thoughtful thing to do. It was such a amazing gesture. And like when he came back to visit me in New York, I was like, oh, we can listen to it. And he's like, yeah, absolutely. So like I would play that CD over and over. And Mean to Me, the song that I chose, was one that I had studied and written about when I was in college. So it was one that I just really loved and had a strong affinity for. Anyway, years later, I found out that my husband does not like Lester Young very much, or Billie Holiday. We laugh about it now, but yeah, I had no idea, and I didn't know for years. And then at some point, I was like, "Oh, we should listen to like Lester Young." He's like, "Darling, I don't know how to break this to you."
You're mean to me. Why must you be mean to me? Gee, honey, it seems to me you love to see me crying. I don't know why I stay home.
I understand that in 2015, you and your husband went through a pretty tough time with like a few different crises all sort of striking at once. Can you talk a little bit about what happened there?
Yeah, this was right when my second book, The Confidence Game, came out. And it was just one of those moments where like everything goes wrong. So the book was doing well, like that was good. But I got really sick. Autoimmune condition, nobody could diagnose it. My husband lost his job right around that same time. My grandmother died, and my mom lost her job. Just like a lot of things going wrong all at once. And that's the reason that I started, on the journey that would become The Biggest Bluff and would become kind of my entry into the poker world, because it was this moment when I realized like, oh wow, you got to be lucky. Like there's so many things out there that you don't control. And it seems so silly because of course, chance plays part in life, but when things are going right, you don't really notice it.
Can you walk me through that leap between we're having a really shit year and I'm going to go learn how to play poker?
Yeah, so that didn't happen immediately. There was an in-between where I was like, well, I want to get a handle on what's going on. And also I need to make money. Let's be perfectly honest. Like, we got to eat. And so I was like, well, I've got to write a book. And I wanted to write about luck. But I needed a way in, and I actually got to poker through John von Neumann, the father of game theory. I read Theory of Games and Economic Behavior and learned that von Neumann was a poker player. That game theory came from poker. And something just clicked. I was like, you know what? I want to learn how to play this game. Let's get someone good to teach me. And Eric Seidel, who's not just one of the best players in the world, but just one of the nicest people and an amazing human being. He became my mentor, and that was the beginning of the journey that became The Biggest Bluff.
Incredible. Can you tell me about winning your first big poker tournament?
Yeah, so that was in the Bahamas, and it was the PCA, which is the Poker Stars Caribbean Adventure, and it was a multi-day tournament. And, I don't really remember much until like I was like, holy shit, like there aren't that many people left. And then before I made the final table, and it was the next day, and I did not sleep very well.
Yeah.
It was, that was a lot. There's a reason, that poker is a mind sport. There was a study done on chess players a few years ago that showed that they burn, I don't remember how many, like 3,000 calories during a match, something insane, like an athlete. And I think the same must be true of poker at a high level, because you're just so focused and you're thinking so hard, and it's everything. And these tournaments last for days, and you play from morning until like 2 a.m., 3 a.m. So you're exhausted. And the closer you get to the final table, the longer you have been playing. So you're like the most depleted at the moment where you need to be the freshest. I remember getting to the room for the final table, and Eric Seidel was there. And I didn't expect him to be there because he didn't have to play until much later in the day. But he came to like wish me luck and set me on my way.
Wow.
And then I won.
And then you won, right? Maria, you are such a bubbly, like, joyful person. What is it like being like a joyful, vivacious woman in the world of poker?
It's interesting. But you know what? I learned at some point that, like, you just got to be you. I'm never going to be the person who, like, stares you down and tries to give you one of those looks when you're, you know, in a hand to be like, you know, people are like, oh, you got to be, like, more aggressive, blah, blah, blah. I was like, well, let me do it my own way.
Yeah.
Like, I smile, I talk, I'm friendly. Even if I'm out to get your money, that's just my personality. And that's what works for me.
Maria, thank you so much for sharing your 7 songs.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a really interesting exercise. I really enjoyed it.
So glad. Life in 7 Songs is a production from the San Francisco Standard. If you haven't already, leave a comment on the show. It helps us know who's listening and what you think about it. This episode was produced by me and Tessa Kramer and mixed by me, Sophie Behrman. Our theme music is by Kate Davis and Zubin Hensler. Jess Hutchison created our show art, and our music consultant is Sarah Tembekshian. I'm Sophie Behrman. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next week.